In 2028, BMW builds the M3 you already know. Gas engine, 3 pedals if you want them. 40 years of history behind the badge, but that car isn't first. A full year earlier, in 2027, another car rolls out wearing the exact same 3 letters, M3. Nothing added to soften it, and it doesn't have an engine at all. Here's the thing you've got to understand before any of this makes sense. M3 never started out as a luxury trim. Back in the 80s was the United 56 as they were turning introduced for touring car racer, built strictly to satisfy a rule book, and the buck came out the other side was something nobody saw coming. A car you could pud to work Monday through Friday that could also embarrass stuff worth 3 times as much. That's the rich. BMW needed a road-legal version of a touring car racer that could also embarrass stuff worth 3 times as much on a Saturday track day. That's the whole reputation. That's why this badge still means something 40 years later. And every single generation since has had to defend that reputation from scratch. We covered the E46 on this channel, the last naturally aspirated, screaming redline version before BMW ever touched a turbo. Every step after that changed something diehards swore would ruin the car for good. So when we say BMW's taking a huge risk here, we don't mean it in some vague marketing sense. We mean it against a badge that survived this exact argument the same weekend BMW revealed its riskiest M3 ever. On a racetrack a few hundred meters away, their own race team was making actual history. That's not a coincidence. That's the whole plan. Here's what actually happened. BMW revealed the M-Concept Neue Klasse at the 24 Hours of Le Mans this June. That same weekend, on the actual track, BMW's factory race team made history. Dries Van Tour put their hybrid V8 on pole position, first time ever for BMW at Le Mans. Days later, the sister car crossed the line second overall. BMW's first Le Mans podium since 1999. They missed the outright win by less than 11 seconds. That's not a scheduling coincidence, and it's not just theater either. BMW's whole M philosophy is printed right there on the letterhead. Born on the racetrack, made for the streets. By dropping the electric M3's reveal into the same 24 hours their real race team was making actual motorsport history, BMW's trying to hand a car with no engine at all the credibility of a podium finish it hasn't earned on its own yet. Now, is that a legit continuation of what M has always claimed to be, or an electric vehicle wrapped in racing theater to make it feel like something it isn't? I'll level with you. I don't think that question has a clean answer yet. It's a bet, and like every bet, we don't find out if it paid off until the car's actually out there. So what has BMW actually promised, past the marketing copy? M boss Frank Van Meel's been specific. The brand keeps doing what M's always done, pulling tech and design straight out of motorsport into production, engine or no engine. The car's central computers even got a name that sounds more like a philosophy than a spec sheet. BMW calls it the Heart of Joy. It's running all 4 motors independently, wheel by wheel, in real time. And here's something that actually earns some trust. Van Meel's been holding back on purpose. The concept hardware is already proven north of 1,300 horsepower is possible. He's not chasing that number for the standard car. His reasoning? A number that looks incredible on paper and cooks itself after one hard lap isn't impressive. It's a liability. M customers actually drive these things hard, session after session, not just once for a YouTube video. But here's the honest problem. Even BMW's own trusted press has set it straight. A concept reveal and a press release full of phrases like particularly direct response characteristics can't prove whether this thing rewards a driver mid-corner the way an E46 does. A parking lot at Le Mans doesn't answer that. Only actually driving the finished car will. So here's the real version of the promise. BMW's told us what they're aiming for. Whether they've actually built it, nobody outside that company knows yet. Not us, not the fastest car channel on YouTube, nobody. Now look, if you're the kind of BMW fan who thinks electric performance car is basically a contradiction in terms, stick with me, because BMW's engineers apparently agree with you more than you'd expect. That's actually the whole reason the next part of this gets interesting. If you've made it this far into a video that hasn't shown you a single 0 to 60 graphic yet, that tells me you're exactly who this channel's built for. Hit subscribe because this is the only place doing the reasoning instead of just the numbers. Here's where BMW's decision gets flat out strange. They're not replacing the gas M3 with the electric one. They've confirmed they're selling both. The electric ZA0 lands in 2027. The next gas M3, coded G84, doesn't show up till 2028, and the current G80 expected to bow out around the middle of 2027, which means there's a real window where if you want a brand new M3 at all, the only one on the lot is the electric one. Quick aside, because this actually matters if you're in the market. If you've been on the fence about picking up a new G80 while it's still around, that clock started ticking the moment BMW confirmed this timeline. Outgoing performance models have a habit of getting more expensive, not less, once people realize the window's closing. Back to the bigger picture. Van Meel's been candid about what this whole setup means. BMW's manufacturing competition against its own best-selling product, on purpose. Not two companies fighting over a customer. One company fighting itself for the same customer. That's not how brands normally talk about their own roadmap, and it's the clearest signal yet that this isn't a hedge. It's a real test, with real sales on the line, and BMW built it this way on purpose. But horsepower and Le Mans pedigree were never going to be the hard part. The hard part is whether a car with no engine can still feel like an M3. And this is where BMW's choices get genuinely human, not just technical. The electric M3 is getting simulated gear shifts. That part's confirmed. Not for nostalgia either. Van Meel's reasoning is purely functional. On track, drivers judge how much speed they're carrying into a corner partly by feel, through the gears. Take that away completely, you take away real information a driver actually uses. So BMW kept the shift feel, without pretending there's an actual gearbox back there. What they didn't keep is the sound, and honestly, this is the detail that tells you everything about how seriously they took this whole thing. Engineers built synthetic soundtracks off a screaming V10 borrowed from the M5. Tried a V8 straight out of a prior M3. Even went back to the E30's original 4-cylinder. And they threw out every single one. Not because the tech didn't work, because every one of those sounds only made sense on the car it actually came from. Faking a V8 growl on a car with zero V8 would have been the easy move. The move a lesser team makes just to shut the internet up for a week. Instead, the electric M3 is going to sound like itself. A brand new signature, built off the actual character of its own motors. That's a company picking authenticity over the easy fake-out. On the one part of the car, nobody would have blamed them for faking. That's the kind of detail most car channels blow past in about 5 seconds flat. We don't do that here. If that's the kind of digging you want in your feed every week, subscribing actually does something. It tells YouTube to keep putting more of exactly this in front of you. E46 M3, E90 M3, F80 M3, then the concept in sequence. And if any of this panic feels familiar, that's because it is. We've stood right here before, literally, on this channel. When the naturally aspirated E46 gave way to the V8 in the E90 and E92, enthusiasts said the exact same thing they're saying now. This won't really be an M3 anymore. Then the V8 gave way to a turbocharged inline-6 in the F80, and the same argument played out again, almost word for word. Van Meel himself has pointed straight at that E46 to V8 jump as precedent. Way more weight over the front axle, a totally different character underneath, and by his account, it still drove like an M3, and BMW sold more of them than ever. So here's the real question underneath all of it, the one actually worth sitting with instead of scrolling past. Is this the same fear cycle running right on schedule, about to get proven wrong for a third time in a row? Or is this genuinely different? Because this time, it's not the layout under the hood changing. It's the hood itself disappearing. Which brings us to what this video was actually always about. Will this gamble pay off, or does BMW end up quietly walking it back the way other manufacturers already have on their own ambitious EV performance projects? How do loyal enthusiasts actually respond once the outrage bait comment sections cool down and these things are sitting in real driveways? Do traditional M fans eventually come around the way they did on the V8? Or is this genuinely the line where M stops meaning what it used to mean to the people who grew up on it? And underneath all of that, does the ZA0 preserve the true spirit of the M3, or does it quietly redefine what M is even allowed to mean going forward? I'm not going to pretend there's a clean answer, because there isn't one yet. The backlash is real. For a real chunk of this community, the M3 badge is inseparable from that inline-6 character. The sound, the red line, the ritual of rowing your own gears. And to them, keeping the name on a car without any of that doesn't feel like evolution. It feels like the name getting used without being earned. BMW's own leadership hasn't exactly met that halfway either. Van Meel's been publicly pretty dismissive of the loudest critics, more or less saying he doesn't get the anger. That's a real, unresolved tension, and honestly, it's more honest to leave it standing than to force some tidy conclusion neither side's actually reached yet. So go back to where we started. 2028 gets you the M3 you already understand. 2027 gets you the one that's got to prove itself with nothing to hide behind. No legacy exhaust note, no 40 years of goodwill, just the engineering, standing on its own, first in line, wearing the podium credibility of a Le Mans weekend it's borrowing before it's earned one of its own. BMW didn't have to send it out in that order. They could have played it safe. Let the gas car lead, let the EV quietly follow a year later as the backup option. They chose the exact opposite, on purpose. That's the real risk here. Not that they built an electric M3, that they're letting every single one of those open questions get answered by the unproven car first, under the real name, in front of everybody. So if you're walking away from this with one thing, BMW isn't just building an electric M3 because the industry's moving that way. They're using their most trusted badge, their actual motorsport credibility, and a genuinely restrained engineering philosophy to try and prove that everything M ever stood for can survive losing the one thing everybody assumed was non-negotiable: the engine. Whether that works is still an open question, but the fact that they're willing to send it out first, alone, under the real name, tells you they actually believe it. If you want to be here when we actually find out, when this thing's in real hands, and we can tell you if it holds up, that's what subscribing does. Not for me, for you, so you don't miss it. And if you haven't seen it yet, go watch our breakdown on why the E46 M3 still holds up as the best M3 BMWs ever built.